Still in the too much detail phase of the game because there's things we haven't shown yet. In this case, I did the weather. It's clear weather everywhere, fine. But first player determination, the way the series works, and I find this kind of weird, I don't know why, but basically you roll a die, well, both players roll dice, and whoever gets the high roll gets to decide who goes first in the turn. I'm just going to roll a single die being solitaire for odd even, and the axis gets the choice first. Now, the question for them is, do I really want to go first? It's not going to hurt me much to pass and force the Commonwealth to go first, so I'm going to do that. If they wanted to be here, they might have moved there already, and now it's just not, it's not as good a situation as it had been. And the Commonwealth doesn't have a hell of a lot they want to do. I put my reserve markers where I kind of want them. I moved some of my infantry forward, just because, why not? And I shifted my truck back and forth. A little bit of a pain in the ass. Oh, and I moved moved my raiders. I moved them into combat mode just because they were going to get close enough to things that like whatever. But now they're not close enough, so I don't know. But they got plenty of movement points next turn, so I didn't really want them up there. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. They're raiders, They can recon stacks, which honestly is still of utility, even playing solo, because I can't remember what's where, even with the units that I'm looking at. So I find this, the hidden counter aspect of the game is absolutely reasonable. I just have no opportunity to remember what's going on. But I shifted some supplies up to Mersa Matrua. It's kind of a painful thing because the truck ends up partway in between, and I have to, spend a few movement points, then spend the big bunks of 13, and then go forward. Reaction phase, I didn't choose any to put anything in reserve, so there isn't any, and nothing exploited. I could use my reserves, lose their marker and move them a little bit, but again, it's not what I wanted to do. So we will go to the second player phase here. And the Axis has stuff to do. I've started moving my Italians, and then I realized, I took City Albarani, and I've moved some of the infantry up here. Got my marker to remind me. It doesn't tell me the exact day or turn that the conversion happened, but I hope it's enough to help remind me. But one thing I thought about is at the beginning of Compass, the Italians actually are sitting in some hedgehogs up here, and I don't know how valuable they really were. They give you some advantages, there's no question of that. But I thought, geez, do I want to build them? And that's a really good question. So there's several things in play here. One is, if I want to go for Mersa Matrua, I should just keep punching on, right? But maybe I don't want to go. I'm not pushing very hard. I'm not using a lot of fuel and everything. So maybe I'm trying to go for that turtling option, which makes the hedgehogs sound good. But they're not just a matter of I'm digging in. You have to spend supply points to get your hedgehogs built. They're 2 supply points each. And there's a limitation. You can only build level 1 hedgehogs. Did I find their effect? Yeah. So they give a number of effects here. DRM in combat and in surprise. The surprise one is just 1 for any size hedgehog. Heavy anti-tank capability to negate tanks doubling in clear terrain. And that's it. Combat and barrage results never reduce or eliminate a hedgehog. Okay, but if you eliminate everything in the hedgehog, it's pretty nasty. And also, there's a limitation on how many hedgehogs each player can produce. Since you could only produce level 1 hedgehogs anyway, I gave each player a bunch of higher level hedgehogs to represent the amount that they're allowed to start. But the fact that you're limited in the amount that you want to start makes it kind of like, gosh, do I really want hedgehogs here that the Brits are going to capture and could actually, if I recall correctly, let's see, no player can build a hedgehog greater than what each player can build. Yeah, so I only have 20 points of hedgehogs to build over the course of the game. Now, if you think about the course of the whole campaign, the Germans did not entrench very many times. They did one big time that I'm aware of at El Alamein area. Here? Yeah. On that line, when it became clear we're not going to just be able to break through, so now we're going to try to bottle up the Allied army. But could it be possible? You know, and it kind of depends on what your victory conditions are, and there aren't any in the game, right? Could it be possible that I want to build a blockage up here? Do I really, really want the Italians to spend some of those 20 in here, in an area that I'm going to have to retake? It feels kind of silly to build them, to be honest, especially since it's going to use supply to do so. Which is then leading me more and more towards the, maybe I should just launch the attack on Mursa Matrua and really create an Italian disaster. But another option might be, well, you know, again, here's the thing. In playing the game, I have knowledge that the Italian army did not have. They did not know they were going to get wiped out. Maybe some of the commanders on the field had inklings towards that, and that's why they dug in, that they were not in the best of position. But the idea of, I'm going to get driven, you know, past Benghazi all the way back, but maybe if I build defenses up here, is definitely not on their mind. But if it was on their mind, what really wouldn't be on their mind is, yeah, but the Germans are going to come in and retake that territory, and then I'm going to have to fight my way through those hedgehogs. So it's like, you know, multiple layers of this. Where do I make my decision-making process from sort of a, I don't know, kind of a role-play-ish type attitude towards it. But I'm kind of thinking, maybe we can see if I can fuck the Brits over and just take Mursa Matrua, huh? Maybe. I don't know. The big question is what I want to do with my truck. I think I've moved my units, reducing my fuel costs a little bit, although I did throw a couple of light tanks up here. That's kind of a tempting target. I don't know. I don't know, as the Brits, that there's 2 units of light tanks up there. There could be something else. And whatever. But, you know, look at the quality of that shit. What the hell? It is very tempting to go run up and attack at this point. Not using reserve movement necessarily. I don't know that I have enough. But the I have one Italian truck. Well, Looks fucking British to me. I'm told that DAK 2 had switched to the gray counters for the Germans. I mean, it was just idiotic to put them in brown. I have no idea why they would have done that. But that one truck, I could continue hauling supplies from Tobruk forward. And if I'm launching an attack, that's not a terrible idea. And I kind of feel like I want to. I'm going to fail, but if I'm not launching an attack, I may want the truck back here to ship stuff up here. But on the other hand, I have plenty of shipping to Benghazi and whatnot, and I'm not even using it now. So I don't know about moving stuff from way back in Tripoli, trying to get back to Tripoli and driving materials out of there. Yeah, later on that's going to be a big deal, and I'm going to need trucks hauling materials out of Tripoli. But right now, I actually I've got this weird situation where I'm going to get supply rod in Tripoli, and I kind of really don't need supplies there for anything. But I also don't necessarily want to put those supplies where the Brits are going to capture them anyway. So knowing what's going to happen, sending the supplies forward seems like a bad idea. On the other hand, depleting Tobruk, which doesn't have a huge supply point gain. So let's see. Bardia's two tokens. Yeah, these are like 1 and 2 token each. The ports that I'm using here, but so Tobruk is actually relatively large, but it's not really enough to like fuel everything that I'm sending through there. So gosh, but again, if I'm gonna launch the attack, I think I do need to move those forward. All right, and I think I'm done with the Italian movement. I have a headquarters here at Buck, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's actually got an 8 hex range. I can throw supplies to it, so for trace supply, I'm good. British reaction. What are they allowed to spend? I don't remember if it's half or a quarter. With higher quality British units, I probably want to overrun the enemy if possible, which makes a reaction move appealing, but it's only half movement, and that would get me 1, 2, 3 to here, which doesn't really help me. So the reserve doesn't give me any advantage here, but I do have the capacity maybe to hit farther. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it takes 3 movement points to overrun. I could do normal combat. Let's check overrun there, page 13. I think it takes 3 movement points to overrun. Yeah. Now I could overrun in movement mode, which, it may not be bad either. I mean, if this is the kind of shit that I'm facing, sure. But if there's something decent hiding under there, not so tasty. I do have a recon unit, though. He can run up and do something. Let's think about that. First of all, recon is an optional role, and it's not that impressive. Any phase in which it moves, a recon unit can spend it's given a D. They rate them A through D in terms of how advisable it is to use this. Quarter of its printed movement allowance and 1 token to recon an adjacent hex. The other player must then reveal the total number of steps and whether heavy or light AT is present. Well, that's just a battalion. So, like, I'll find out if there's 2 or 3 steps total in this hex. I will already know the AT capability since that's red, and I think red is the good stuff. You can't remember. I think red means that it's combined, a fully combined arms type advantage, which is actually pretty potent. However, it's a shitty unit, and it doesn't do tank stuff because it doesn't have the armor symbol on it. It just is anti-tank capable for some reason. Now, if I'm familiar with those Italian light tanks, they don't have much anti-armor capability, to be honest. They have some defense, and they have like a machine gun in the turret. Of course, I'm getting my knowledge from Lion of the Desert, but my knowledge of what weapons were specifically in effect at various times, you know, in the war are not very good. So I'm like going back into the 20s for that one. So maybe these are a little better. But yeah, I'm not going to get much by reconning, and I'm going to spend supplies, which I really can't afford to spend. So recon's not an option. But I do have the opportunity on my neck. Like, I'm not going to be doing it this turn. I'm thinking about the British turn in advance, what I'm going to do. I'm already on the British turn. I'm going to pause and fuck around with something else for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it would be kind of cool to kill some units, right? But it would kind of suck to put my units out where they might be hurt. Before we jump to the Allied turn, I just want to get over here. So required Italian units must be in Egypt. I have been tracking that. I've got plenty in Egypt. I actually think I've met the requirements for the Mussolini line already, with enough up in here and the full Egyptian point total. And then what else do we have coming up? The city Bari is by October. You know, I've got forever, right? And I'm already there. So the question is just how far I want to push. And I'm on the British reinforcements. I checked, there aren't any. They have, though, their variable reinforcements don't come in yet. Okay, we're good. This is part of, you know, I do actually have to make all these checks every single time in my head. I can't simply remember. And if I do put it off, and I probably will get to the point where I'm putting it off and not remembering anymore, I may well forget this, but there's this. And every month I get to look at this and see what's, you know, coming up that month and what I have to deal with and what new factors have to come into play. So there's that. All right. I've got to make my decision, though. Are the Brits tempted to make an attack on this little unit and maybe start, you know, the offensive this way? Am I willing to take that risk? Jeez, I don't know. You know, it's like, this is the kind of decision that is just so tough on me, because I know historically the Brits should just stay back, and it's probably in their best interest. Killing those couple Italian units, I'm going to be able to kill them anyway, right? But they're out there. The safest action is always to take no action. To let the opponent control the initiative. Wait a minute. Whoa. Oh, what was that? I don't know. Like, I think that was either a hawk or an eagle that just took off. I don't know if you saw it. There's a human. But yeah, it's tempting to just run out there and attack, but it's easier not to. And ease. So not only am I willing to give up the initiative, I'm also willing to be slothful as much as possible. I'll think a little bit more, but I really do think that I'm going to hold off on advancing and try to hit more according to the historical schedule. But, you know, I could get some kind of significant advantage and actually start creating defenses up on the Jabal Akhtar, the ranges up there and the coastal road up there. I've done that kind of shit in Desert Fox and turned things ugly. Not in Desert Fox. Was it in Africa that I did it? I don't remember. Desert Fox doesn't start early enough. Desert Fox starts with Rommel coming on. And, there's all these kind of, early decisions having to do with, like, the Italian invasion. If they want to do the best they can, they're not going to invade. Well, they have to. They're ordered to. But okay. But if you weren't, if you were playing with the option where they don't have to, well, maybe they want to defend and maybe they want to make it hard for the Brits to come forward. But equally, the Brits might well want to create a defensive line up there on that nasty terrain and get us what many advantages as they possibly can. So that's tempting. Some idiots. I've been moving this guy ahead using normal ground movement in combat mode so that he's not using truck movement. But if he started back in Alexandria, I could have fueled him up and just shot him over there, right? Because I have an infinite dump. But for whatever reason, he's taking the scenic route on foot, and well, okay, whatever. I'm going to avoid doing anything. Always in favor of doing nothing. It hasn't been too bad. I screwed something up, but it's not that terrible. If turns are going to be that short, I might as well keep playing, right? I mean, it's never going to be this quick again. Let's get some of that calendar out of the way. But then I realized something that I've been forgetting, which is the random events table. At the beginning of every turn, right after weather is determined, you do that. So let me do my quick weather roll. Got to be careful. That's how you lose units. Okay, weather's fine. Now we look for random events. Where do we find them? I think we just roll on the common events, and then it can transfer to worse and worse tables or less and less likely tables. So let's do it. Some of these are not going to have any effect anyway, so it's fine that we missed. 12, for example, is no event. Great. But yeah, we should probably be playing, with the rolls that are intended. Player determination. Get this stuff out of the way. The Brits get first call. They're going to go second. They chose not to attack the Italians. They're going to keep the reactive position. Turn flip-flops feels like a kind of weird thing. It does in every game. I know it's part of the strategy in this is to try to set yourself up so you're moving less. You might get a double turn when it's important or something like that. I don't know how big a deal it is right here. I'm so tempted with the Italians to push on to Mersa Matruh. Again, I don't feel like it's worth wasting the supplies on building the hedgehogs. But I got a shot at winning the whole shebang here. If those Brits are not set up well, if I don't know what I'm doing on defense, I don't know what I'm doing on offense either, but if I don't know what I'm doing on defense well, I might just be able to get through. And there's obvious shit right here. Yummy shit. Is it that yummy though? There's a reserve unit here. That thing could just drive up and join them and prevent my attack. And then I might be overextended. Another opportunity might be to position myself here. with an escarpment and a wadi, both of which are very helpful in terms of defensive. The wadi, if we take a look at it, is half strength to the attacker only. And I can choose that instead of open if he's attacking across the wadi. If he's attacking across the escarpment, that's really nasty and possibly impossible. But this is pure open. So I'd have to like position myself here. And zones of control are weird in this game. Okay. They affect truck movement only. But in terms of like units that are trying to move through it, only trucks are really affected by zones of control. But your supplies are impacted by zones of control. So unless you negate the zone of control, you're not going to be able to trace supply through it. And that's seriously problematic. So and that's how you need breakouts. So it's like, yeah, I could throw myself here, but it's not like I'm blocking these hexes. Oh, and worse, he's got, it's not a road, but he's got a way around me. So he can basically surround me. So the real question then is, okay, well, how do I defend Sidi al-Barani? And I'm not sure that I can. It is not that defensible. Unlike the terrain once you get up to Bardia and Tobruk, it's just not good. And that's why I kind of feel like I should push forward. Get as much ground as I can, but try to maintain some kind of defense of my supply line. So I think I'm going to try. Okay. I fueled a conf group. Stacking is generally not a big deal in OCS. But in this game with those big Italian divisions, it actually does start to become one. You're allowed like 10 regimental equivalents. Well, those divisions are worth like 3 each. But some of them are smaller, like the black shirts, and the Libyans as well. And I am within stacking restrictions here. I had to check that out. I'm sending these guys by foot walking here. They're going to continue walking, and then the armor might support them, or maybe they'll cut up or whatever. I don't know. But now I'm presenting, these are in the same hex. I just wanted to keep them separate because this is the conf group that's fueled. Honestly, I think the conf group has to do with stacking and nothing else, which means actually all of these are fueled. So we're actually fine doing that. That's a pretty big stack for this game, actually. I had to check this. I'm kind of worried about the size of that. But, because those brigades should count only as 1 regimental equivalent, I think. Right? Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of companies. That helps a little bit. And so this is fueled now and capable of doing something. I've actually got a reserve marker there that I used. I've got an extra reserve I can drop here. These guys did not move. But everything else pushed forward. I moved my supplies where I wanted to. I'm actually out of supply in Tobruk because why? What's up with this shit? Wow, that's a weird place to leave a dump. Guess it's better to leave one than to take one. I've always kind of wondered about that. I gotta take a dump. I think I'll just leave it. Anyway. In terms of the Allied or Commonwealth reaction, I don't really want to pay fuel to do something. It's definitely threatening, But yeah, I don't know how big a deal it is. And that means we get to the end of the first player. Now, so I'm using the turn marker to indicate who went it first in the turn. Now, if I flip that over to indicate the British turn, I won't really know where I am, right? Because it's not always, it's not like the tactical ACW games that the gamers do, or the Napoleonic for that matter, where it's like, it's always I go, you go. Here there's that disruption, who's the first player on each turn. I'm going to mark that by flipping that over, and now I know where I am in the turn by putting the second player turn there. I know things like this seem obvious and everything to like 98% of us, right? But I've been in positions where somebody mentioned some stupid little thing that I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty fucking obvious, which is why I brought up the thing about the air points and then end up using the same kind of markers, but for something else that I feel is more important, because I can kind of find the airplanes. I can see why you'd want to direct your attention to them, but right now I know where my planes are, you know? All right. Anyway, like usual, I'm going to take a little pause. Running out of light, which is kind of problematic. So far that's meant that I've played games that I'm going to quit recently. Like I did the Wild Blue Yonder and ended up giving up on that. And I did Dallas and ended up giving up on that. But, you know, I've only got X amount of time. And if I'm not going to give the full experience, you know, if I'm not having fun at all, and if I don't feel like I'm really showing anything new in a game, I just don't see any great reason. You know, like with Dallas, maybe I'm missing something, but the something I'm missing isn't like expressed in the designer's note, in the you know, the director's notes for the game, right? The idea of how you would actually do this right. Now, you can make the same argument with like D&D. When I read through the Dungeon Master's Guide or whatever, yeah, it gave me an idea, and that's like probably how 98%, 95% say of DMs like just ran their games. But they weren't the good ones. You know? And it wasn't until I started playing other systems that gave me more about, you know, how to develop, you know, how to work the story with the players better. And I would realize, you know, yeah, I did some of that with the players during those games, so maybe that was cool, you know, but it really, you know, it's just a matter of trying to capture that element and giving it over. And I think the best towards that was the World of Darkness stuff, but Amber also gave me ideas in that way that these other role-playing games kind of didn't. Like, they give you scripts or, you know, script-like looking things of what, like, the game master and the players were saying and everything. And it all felt very gamey, as opposed to this really, like, getting into characters and you know, and actually playing a role, as opposed to where you're acting more than using dice to to you know, determine what happens, you know. But Dallas obviously is going to be a use dice to determine what happens, because it doesn't have any role-playing elements at all as far as I see. But there might be things the director could do that could encourage players to, like, negotiate or something. I don't know what, you know, cut off their fingers if they don't. I really have no idea. It's just anyway. I'm talking about bullshit in the midst of this, but you know, I do that with personal life stuff too. The personal thoughts. The evening's getting close, so I'm gonna do the British turn, but that's not a personal thought. I'm having pizza for like one of my frozen pizzas for the first time in, I don't know, many months, maybe close to a year, maybe a year, I have no idea. And then that made me start to realize, I haven't been doing it because inflation hit and I like looked at the prices and I'm like, I can't do that. They've gone up a significant amount compared to what everything else. Well, honestly, I've cut back on a lot of things that I used to just buy because, and stuck to what are sort of my staples, but I'm not sure that they're particularly that much cheaper, to be honest. Some of them are. But then I started to wonder, why? And they were on sale, but not great, like at a price that I wouldn't have bought them before the inflation period hit. It's really annoying because the raw materials costs and everything have all come down, but we're not gonna lower prices again. Some prices went down, but like in terms of food and stuff, I think there were some things that were ridiculously high, or like my bread, which was coming in too small a package. But a lot of the prices have just stayed the same. And the bread has gotten back to its normal size, but a lot of the prices have just stayed the same. And they raised the prices, and well, the public's willing to pay, so fuck them. More profits for us. There's nothing you can fucking do about it. There is nothing you can do about it, honestly. But anyway, I feel like somehow the storm and the trauma of that maybe did a little bit to fix me or to unbreak some of the things that were going worse. I'm not sure, but I'm feeling myself less and less playing Raid, more and more wanting to do this or go outside. I haven't gone outside. I mean, I went outside the house and hauled some wood around, but that's it. I haven't left the house, and I keep thinking that I should, but it's hard. It's hard, man. That was hard even before things went overly bad. But yeah, let's move some Brits and call it a day for this. I don't know what else I'm going to do. I've got a clan fight, or clan do lots of shit. It's not even really a fight. It's just spend lots of energy and stuff to get points for your clan, rather than anything else for Raid. And since I failed at my last one, I had better put some effort in this time. And that's the end of that, with nothing really happening. Just shipping supplies back and forth. Now, somebody mentioned that there are some real problems, at least with this version of DAK, which is that the Italian army is too good. That may have been part of what kind of impelled me in the Compass scenario to launch my attacks and make sure I had artillery support. We're going to see. Remember, the Brits are a little downgraded. He said one of the fixes that was done was to get rid of the anti-tank trenches around Tobruk until past a certain point. But yeah, that really, the Brits are going to have too hard a point. He brought up some, the same commenter brought up some interesting other points, like there's no real reason for the Brits to go any further than Tobruk, to run their way down. I'm not sure I agree with that. And my goal here is to get myself in a position where I can fortify this. Because I think that's nasty terrain to force the Axis to fight in. But in Desert Fox, you're definitely able, and the Germans can, in this, certainly. I don't remember when the Italians get road access. Operate down here, which, you know, gives them the capability to not have to worry about the coastal road. Absolutely. They could cut the British position, maybe take Tobruk if I'm expending too much to defend up there. I don't really know how big an issue it is. I mean, so his basic argument is there's really no victory conditions in the game. And yeah, so what do? Well, when there's no victory conditions at all, I play it kind of like I would a role-playing game, which is I try to follow, you know, what I think would be an appealing path. Not necessarily the historical path. For example, I've got the Italians pushing forward. I don't think that building those hedgehogs is a great idea, and I do think that it would be kind of cool to try to take Mersa Matruh. Now, it's kind of interesting because apparently Dean wrote some defense in an operations magazine back in the day, and you know, was like, oh, it's not as bad as you people are putting it, and this, that, and the other. And he got rules wrong when he defended the situation. But definitely in the notes here, you get kind of a feeling that he wants the Italians to be able to take Mersa Matruh. And that may be like part of what his, you know, his fixation is there. But basically, they have units with quality of 3 in enough quantity that pretty much each of the Italian stacks can be fighting at quality 3. Yeah, they do have a decent amount of them. We'll see what effect that has, because, you know, maybe the problem with his play was he was too aggressive, like I'm being with the Italians. Not the only problem. He was getting rolls wrong and stuff. I'm sure I'll get more rolls wrong than he did, though. Okay, a couple of mistakes have been pointed out to me. One is the unit that started here could have been in supply, but it couldn't stay in supply with, you know, what I was planning on doing, so I had to get it out of there. It could have been in throw supply. There were headquarters that were in place that could have reached it. I didn't realize that's a road going down there, so yeah. That's pretty minor. Had no impact on play. The second one was the Commonwealth started with some units. I didn't check this one. I don't really want to hunt down the setup to make sure. I'm assuming the guy who commented is correct. Where they had to set up west of a certain line. And if you recall, I had like all my units on here. I think I mistook east for west in that case and set them up east. Not a big deal given how slowly the Italians moved. The Brits could have pulled back anyhow. But then the one that really is an issue is I was moving trucks without paying for loading and unloading. And in fact, I actually explicitly stated that they don't have to pay a loading and unloading cost. And I have found one. They pay 10, well, I had it pointed out to me and then went and hunted this down because this is important. They pay a 10% of their movement points in order to do a pickup or drop off, which means I've been moving my supplies a little too quickly. That hasn't mattered much for the Italians, although I, on some turns, have been using my truck fully with those freebies. I think I could have matched what I've got going on. However, with the Brits, they're one truck running here. Now, this is not going to be too big a deal. I was moving a single token of supply with that truck each time. So it wasn't going to be as big a deal. So the Italian one is a bigger truck, but I didn't move it all the time because there were times when I just didn't want to pull the supply out of Tobruk or whatever. Another warning, though, he might have caught me leapfrogging supplies, which I didn't intend to do. That would be just a fuck up where I was aware of the rule, by which I mean I would ship supplies, say, to Tobruk from Tripoli, and then pick them up in a truck. I don't think there's anywhere else that I was likely to do that from, but given that Tobruk has no supplies in it, I fear that I probably did that. About staying up relatively late, as I get to see the pretty sunrises. I don't know if the camera's catching it, but there's some really, really nice pink in there. Of course, the bad part is that I'm probably going to sleep all day and won't get much to DAK today. Blame rain. Fortunately, in terms of playtime, first of all, I had a clan event. Okay, so I'm forced to, or whatever, I'm playing more Raid than I have been the last few days. Felt like I was kind of kicking the habit, but they get you in this cycle, and it's like, you know, every 2 weeks there's a clan event, every 2 weeks there's a fusion event, you know, and you just like are constantly being drawn into, hey, I have to do this, whatever. I actually don't have to do all that much for the clan event anymore to just meet my clan's minimums, but I feel like I should help them win, you know, more than just do the bare minimum. But that's not the really unfortunate thing. The unfortunate thing is I watch videos while I'm playing, and normally it's just the news, which when the news is exciting, draws me in, and, you know, when a lot's going on, something that really has me, you know, hooked on that particular story or set of stories or whatever, I end up watching a whole lot, sitting in front of the computer a whole lot more, where I may not even end up actually, you know, doing much on Raid or whatever. I'm more just sitting there at the computer. Right now, what I've been doing in Raid is relatively time-consuming, but not necessarily for me. I can come away and I've got it playing in the background right now, right? The problem is that I woke up just as dawn, or I went to sleep as dawn was breaking, or soon after, about an hour after. But every now and then I get hooked on kind of strings of videos. Okay, that's fine. Usually I can pull away from them pretty easily. But part of why I stayed up so late was I've been watching a lot of this classically trained operatic singer who also taught voice for a while, doing React videos. Now, I don't usually pay attention to React videos, although I had been watching some from a guy doing legal analysis of movies. He also did legal analysis of current important cases, which is how I got kind of into that. But it's just such a hook for me because I haven't been listening to enough music, and I'm hearing songs that I love being dissected. And, you know, instead of a 5-minute song, it's a 25 to 40-minute video about the song going into it. Now, every now and then I listen to people who know a lot about the history of the songs and whatnot, and I had been doing that as well, but that didn't really hook me in the same way quite a few times. This is analyzing the music, and the music is what's important, not so much the history of the bands and whatnot. But she also, like, you know, looks at the theatrical aspects, etc., sometimes from a very operatic standpoint. And it's just, I don't know, it's enthralling me, and it's like, why am I doing this? You know, I should be reading, which is something that I had been doing instead before, or playing games when it's light out or whatever, or pushing more games out the tube. But anyway, trying to force myself to do some while I've got some daylight here, some of DAK. I rolled the weather. The weather didn't come up with anything, but I got something interesting. Common events. I rolled a 65, which means I get to go on the less common events. Hey, I'm aware enough that I remembered weather includes the random events phase. I really kind of wish that had been baked in. I don't know if it's in all that many of the games. But if it is in more than just DAK, if it had been baked into the sequence of play, I could see these events being withdrawn from the series as a whole. They're very, they have a huge potential to impact things. But I think that's cool. So I get a 34, Suez Canal mine, active access air units stationed in Crete, and any type. Okay, so this requires active access air units stationed in Crete and weather on map B. I don't have those prerequisites, so it's a no event. So a lot less exciting than one would hope. And you know, it's so fitting that, like, yeah, you know, sometimes I'm complaining about the weather or about my lifestyle or whatever, and now I've got to share this, like, this other reason why I'm not on, you know, on the game as heavily as I should be. But it's just what fucking happens to me. I have no choice. Player initiative, might as well roll it since I'm here chattering. So the Brits get the first call on the initiative. Again, I think they want to go second, so I leave that marker as it is. I don't worry about the reinforcement yet, because that'll come in later. And so far, basically nothing has happened in the game, right? What have we played? Like, this was the first turn, so, you know, we've played 3 turns so far. We're in the 4th turn. I think things are going to start happening pretty damn soon, though. I think this fuel marker gets turned up on the refit phase. I'm not absolutely certain of that, though. So I mean, it's certainly, he fueled up in his last turn, which I think means, yes, it can't be there anymore. That's certain, but, and it should have been done earlier. But it has to happen in your player turn cleanup phase, unless it's clean up the stuff that the other player's done, right? It's not that. Here we are with the damn tape again. You know, I don't know why this particular map connection doesn't work. I think it's because it's close to a crack on the tables. None of the others are. A lot of people, you know, throughout my gaming period, a lot of people have talked about, hey, why don't you use Plexi? I just don't fucking like the stuff. I just really don't. Two reasons for that. So one is glare. Well, these maps give off a shit ton of glare, so the Plexi wouldn't hurt with these particular maps. The other is kind of a floaty effect, but my piece of Plexi that I own is relatively thin. However, just think about how much fucking Plexi I would have to get for a game this size, even if I decided I had to. And, you know, if this was a one mapper or something, I wouldn't have the same problem. I just feel like all I need here is something a little bit better than this tape, and I don't know. I don't know what to use, and whether I could. I don't want to slide the whole map down, but it's because of this crack in the table that the tape is separating there. And it's kind of unfortunate because this is kind of an important area, at least for a significant part of the game. We're talking about the territory, the split is between Bardia and Tobruk. And early in the game, that's going to be really, really important. Yeah. Later, I hope we're down. Well, later we'll be over there. We'll be over here. And then we have the chase, I assume. But where am I? Okay. One thing that I also got in the comments was, don't, you know, ship your materials as quickly as you do. So I come over here, I make my roll, I wasn't impacted, so I got 2 full SPs over here to Tripoli. That's fine, but I shouldn't ship out of Tripoli to other places. First of all, I'm doing it out of stop, but it's not a big deal. Movement comes right after. But that's what caused me to say move units from, move supply points from Tobruk that I'm pretty sure I leapfrogged. I'm not going to worry too much about it, but it's just kind of what happens. But instead, I should be making my choices up here as to what units are moving and everything. And part of the problem with that is I kind of want to see what the flow is, but I know what the flow is, right? At this point, I know City Barani is going to get, what, one, right? One token. And yeah, I have weird stacking choices, but, and you know, I know what the points coming in are going to look like. Tobruk's going to have one. Basically, I'm going to be getting one here and one and a quarter up here. And so I'm familiar enough that I can kind of stop doing that, but I'm always worried that I'll forget to move them because I'm only playing with this box when I bring in those supplies or reinforcements, which aren't coming in yet. And I don't know. Chatty and not very play today, I guess. When I talked about the glare, that does bring one of the things I just don't like. Maps from this period. This was in the 90s, but actually starting in the 80s, started being more garish in a lot of ways. There was sort of I don't know, almost a childish simplicity to the old Avalon Hill maps. But as you got to the 80s, they started using more color and because they had more color available in the palette. But you'll also start seeing more and more glossy maps, glossy counters. I don't like any of these things. You know, I like the matte finish on the counters. Now, the glossy counters do have an advantage for like very few people probably. Notably for pipe smokers, the tobacco stains tend to wipe off them very easily. Same with the maps. You know, I mean, they're easier to clean, but man, I just don't like anything about them. They're slickery. And the combination, the slick counters are bad enough. You add that to the kind of poochiness of the maps, fine, I probably should have laid more stuff on them, even if, you know, assuming I'm not going to use plexi, or fine plexi of this size. And yeah, I can use multiple pieces, but multiple pieces would get the same kind of jarring issues happening on divides if I, you know, don't have them measured perfectly to overlap and whatnot. I don't know. Just, you'd want them in a different grain, I think, than the grain of the maps. You'd want them different sizes from the map. But yeah, it's like the slick material of the map board and the slick material of the counters causes it more likely that you're going to knock counters off. I haven't been having a problem with this. Yes, there are some big stacks, but they're not humongously stupid and whatnot. But I got to tell you, you know, that the golden era for me of SPI, when I got into the games, which is a little later, you know, late 70s basically, I just loved the design choices that mainly Simmons made back then, in terms of, like, you know, you had a matte finish map with a reasonable amount of color on it. It started getting a little heavier as he went. Central Front Series has probably a little too much color for my tastes, but it was still okay. And really wonderful choices as to the color of the counters, as to the composition of the exterior finish on the counters. Just, you know, they were a little thinner than the Avalon Hill ones, which actually makes them easier to stack. They're not stupidly thin, and it made them easier to clip. These are a little thicker, a little poofy. The maps are poofier, just a whole lot going on. Now, there was a difference between the SPI magazine games, which had thinner quality maps, and we saw that so clearly in the Central Front, and the boxed version, which had a heavier quality, which pooched more. So actually, the magazine ones were a little better. They flattened a little easier. And then, the other problem with them, though, is that they do rip. That thinner quality paper tended to tear a little bit. And so I have a few magazine games that are not in the best of shape, mainly ones that I played a lot. Getting close to actual contact with the enemy. Wow, it's great how this is like developing so slowly. I mean, I really do like that aspect of it. Things are getting trickier. You know, I'm pushing things forward, spending fuel because there was some armor here. Spent my full fuel point. Was that wise? Did I need to? It gives me options if I do. See, I only needed 3 fuel points for this stock. Or 3 tokens of fuel, so I could get a token back by not giving him fuel, which means he won't be able to do an exploit stage, which he'll only be able to do if I succeed in my role. But that exploit stage would give me a combat earlier than I would get it otherwise. Am I in that big a hurry? I mean, these are Italians, man. They're not in that big a hurry. I don't know. I honestly just don't know. But the fact that I've got him fueled up and ready to go, he could still exploit if I get the successful roll, but I'd have to pay those 3 talents again. I think instead I'm going to take a talent and, token. I'm going to call them talents all the time, right? They're Romans. I'm going to give them a token in change because I don't think fueling the unit makes a whole lot of sense for me. If I was going to attack, I would definitely want to. That's the problem. And I don't think the conf group can take over a headquarters. That's kind of an interesting question. For fueling is really the only real issue here. See, it just feels weird to me that you'd be able to assign a headquarters to a conf group. You don't really need to. But one of the things that I was running across that was kind of disturbing me a little bit was that, okay, so I start pushing some of my units forward. Basically this line up, I've moved already. Now I have some units that I have to decide, hey, how much I want to push them forward, and stack with other units and whatnot. But the problem is, I probably want to move my headquarters forward a little bit. So this guy, if he goes immobile, he turns into an 8. It's beginning to stretch the line. I can probably hold off another turn because I don't think I'm going to be doing some kind of massive surrounding, but I got to worry about this guy too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, he's barely in supply if I leave him there. So maybe I want to push forward a little bit, but again, I think I'm going to go for a slower advance and not expend my supplies as quickly. Although, again, whatever supplies I don't spend here, I'm probably going to lose to the Brits, which is worse than spending them, so I don't know. I'm making decisions for what I think are the wrong reasons, right? Like, I'm like, oh, well, we're going to lose, therefore, we're going to lose this engagement we're charging forward into. Therefore, we don't want much supply left afterwards. But honestly, and especially because if we happen to take Mersa Matruh, hey, we win the game, right? I'm not going to pack it up if that's the case. But we win the game, and we end up, it didn't matter whether or not I took those things. I kind of like the idea. See, here's the thing. I like the idea of breaking a game into segments. So for example, my goal right now is Mursa Matrua. I'll just go all out for it. Well, maybe not all out. I don't know how to do that particularly, but I'm attacking to get it. I'm making the advance on it because that is, as far as I'm concerned, the Italian victory conditions right now. And then, based on whether they get that or not, their victory conditions will change. Maybe they start deciding we want to push deeper into Egypt. Maybe they decide we just want to entrench down there. Either of them is reasonable options. What I shouldn't be doing is making decisions such as, gosh, I really ought to use my supply up because I am expecting to lose, right? I'm actually maybe making this attack in order to use up my supplies, perhaps. Although, that's goofy, because I could just not ship them that far. And I know why I want to ship these supplies out of here right away. Because when I ship them in, I'm using 2 of my 6 port capacity. And when I ship other supplies, so I don't leapfrog, out, I'm also using port capacity. And so I don't have to remember that number as much. Probably makes the most sense to keep a little stack to the side just to remind me how much port capacity I've used on reinforcements. It's not a big deal right now. Like I said, I'm able to send basically 2 and a token here. Now there are places up here. I don't think this is a port. And then Benghazi, where I might send some of those additional supplies in, but it's not that big a deal. Not right now. Some new stuff. I'm actually moving some replacement units onto the track. They have a movement allowance of 5, so they go to this box. Yeah. And then it's going to take them 1 turn for each additional box. They don't need fueling or anything like that, so that's fine. It could be moving more units down, you know. Might not be too bad an idea, to be honest, because I'll be in trace supply. I don't need roads. Let's send all these wonderful machine gun units along with them. I want to send that. That costs me fuel and it's a piece of shit. Oh, I could send some of these mighty divisions in. Ooh. I don't know about them. They're not motorized, are they? They're not. Some of these require replacements. In fact, all of them require replacements, so that doesn't seem like a good idea. I could send artillery, but fuck that. All artillery makes me want to do is expend supplies, so the hell with that. So I've gotten a little slow on getting these guys moving forward. I don't know what that's going to mean. Over here at the main front, I pulled those supplies out of that kind of weird place. I'm sending a couple of replacements moving forward. You don't want to get them, where they're killed, but I also, might as well move them up towards the headquarters up here that can maybe rebuild units if I need that. I don't feel like I'm very well prepared right now. And I got 2 comp groups up here in position, some stuff that couldn't make it up here. This is kind of vulnerable to raining, but not terribly. I don't know. Probably should leave something as a garrison. The truck carried that there. Yeah, let's leave a garrison there. This guy could be there. And that's one of the problems with moving your supply last, is that, I don't know, I guess I could have driven it a little further. There's no real reason for it to be up here. And in fact, there's no reason for it to be here at all because my headquarters are behind it. But I am thinking about pushing another headquarters forward. The problem is, of course, moving headquarters requires fuel, and I don't want to use up what little resources I have. But I don't have much up at the front right now. Like, maybe not enough to fight with. So this guy, 1, 2, 3, 4. Does not make it back to Solom even, which means he's kind of in a stupid location. But I moved this guy down here. I don't know if I was counting 8, and that's, which would get me back to Bardia. 1, 2. So this guy's in a good position. This guy's in a shitty position, and I don't know why I moved him. But this guy can only throw to the very edge of where I'm heading. So he's not terribly useful to me. And I have to worry about keeping everybody within range of a headquarters because my only trace supply is running through the headquarters for the most part. This road here lets me run back to Sidi Barani, which is a port, and so I can actually operate out of that. So that's not as bad as I thought it was. But here I can only trace 5 back to it, so that's not great. I don't know. Gets me to the Allied reaction. And again, the idea, by the way, I have nothing in reserve because I moved everybody forward. This is one of the things with advancing, when you're advancing over a decent amount of territory, you know, at speed, whatever speed may be, combat or movement mode. When you're advancing at a reasonable speed, you got no reserves. But I have these semi-reserves here, which is something of a threat. I don't think the British want to react. They just don't like doing that. They don't like doing things, which means we run down to the cleanup. If I had any fuel, this is where that would get marked off. And instead, what I do is I move this down here. Like I said, I use this to indicate who went first in a given turn. I'm using this, I flip the color over for that one, to mark who I think has kind of got the initiative right now in terms of who's pressing the attack. When I'm playing the game, especially when I'm babbling on camera, when I'm playing Raid, watching videos, reading, I'm doing stuff, not going for walks. I'm okay. And if I'm doing something like playing Raid or whatever, when I make food, I run to the kitchen real fast, right? I run to my mess and I slap something together. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, but I'm like not rushed enough in a sense. So I had enough time to kind of let my mind wander as I walk into the kitchen. And I mean, it's just, you know, every single time that I do something where my mind has a little bit of time, I just am overwhelmed by how miserable my life is. You know, it's okay when I'm talking. It's okay. It's okay. And that's why it doesn't come across when I'm talking, right? Because I've got, you know, my little snarky laugh and whatever, but I don't know, you know. And it's why I don't go for walks, because going for a walk, until I get my mind in gear and start thinking about something else, that's what hits me. But, you know, I'm just going to put some mayo and some mustard on to make a sandwich. And just, you know, the weight of all reality just hits me and I don't know. I don't know why grief and, because that's what it really is. I don't know why it hits me in that way, kind of no matter what I do. It's like, you know, the only thing I can do is constantly keep my brain engaged and kind of try to forget and just hope for an end. late in the videos is, and how late I woke up, you know. The chatter and whatnot. I did do some stuff outside, at least it was that, but it has mainly like eaten up whatever time I had to play the game today. I'm gonna push the British turn pretty quickly. I have some reinforcements coming in. But other than that, it's just this kind of, yeah, it's coming on nighttime. And one of the reasons that I'm up all the time at night, always, is I feel no guilt for like doing the things and nowadays. So it's the things that require no effort, right? It's always been that. Like I can sit around and read, I can play games, I can play video games, I can do whatever. But now also, at certain times in my life, it's been, I can avoid people by being up at night, even if that means like, you know, going for a walk at night during decent weather. I don't do that here, but when I lived in Buffalo, for example, I would often go out for a walk at night because I was near kind of interesting stuff. But I felt, I don't know, less compulsion to do so, less guilt for not doing so, and just all kind of shit like that. I just don't feel guilty for whatever I do at night. But sometimes it's like I would live with people and I'd want to avoid them. You know, family, right? Or friends or whatever, but I just don't want to, I want to be unencumbered by people. But anyway, now it is largely a time when I feel less pain and sadness and guilt and all that. And again, you know, it's just, I can be sitting in my chair doing, you know, just watching videos or whatever, and I don't have to, I feel absolutely no kind of compunction to, oh, I've got to go play DAK, or I got to do this or whatever. I can stay the entire night awake without a lot of pain. And that's kind of interesting. And it's always been my escape time. Say the calculations of the unloading and loading for the trucks is making it much, much more complicated and painful, just doing the math in my head. So the other way, I would just like, you know, I got 23 hexes to Marsa Matruh, I counted that. And then I just start figuring out how many multiples of the 13 or whatever it is to Alexandria that I have to move. Now it's like more complicated, it's 23, now it's 27 and a half to drop that token off. And I kind of just don't want to deal with the trucks because they were so much easier before. I kind of wish they had less movement points and maybe got a few extra if they don't, you know, load and unload at all during their turn. Although obviously, you know, if you're shuttling things just a few hexes, you're spending a lot of time loading and unloading. So realism-wise, it makes sense to do things the intuitive way, right? But it is more painful. There was no way that was 23 movement points. It was 23 hexes, so it was like 7 2/3 movement points plus 4.5. Yeah. Okay. I think we're actually done though. So I just did what movement I have. These guys, I don't want to, I think they get partial movement on a turn they land if they want it, but they need fuel. Actually, I could fuel them up. Move them to 2, 3, 4, 5. Move them to here at El Alamein. Interesting. Which is directly in trace supply. It's the furthest I can be in full trace supply to Alexandria. And that takes care of that. I get to move one of these suckers over. But basically, I'm just pooling my resources. Yep, not that much. For when I'm ready to do a counterattack. Not that the Italians have actually attacked yet. They crossed the border. And they're charging forward gallantly. Anyway, that's probably it for tonight. I'm sorry I'm not playing much. I'm trying to give an idea of the the Y on many levels, but yeah, it's, I don't know. And, you know, there are things that maybe I hoped for that would distract me that are not as unhealthy as my usual existence. And nothing's coming of them. And I'm actually, frankly, kind of worried about someone as well, so. You don't know. Wednesday, it doesn't look that pretty, but the weather is about 60 degrees most days now for some reason. I don't know what the hell's going on. It's still January. I got my recycling bin out there. Apparently they aren't picking it up today, but I'm leaving it down there because what they did, they used to give these sheets that tell you, you know, when they're going to pick up recycling, which weeks are recycling, which weeks are yard debris. And I don't even pay for yard debris anymore because I pretty much use it in my yard. But for some reason or another, they gave me a new thing for it, which I can use for hauling wood or something until it busts. Anyhow, back to DAK. I am trying to play Raid in the background. We'll see how this goes, because we need points in my clan conflict. But I've got actually a fair amount of time. Now, the fair amount of time, I'm thinking to myself, I should go out to the liquor store or something, get some extra alcohol, because I've been drinking martinis at night. I had one with a cigar, actually in my bedroom, which I usually don't do because I don't want that stench, but whatever. But I want to get moving, and I thought we were going to start getting attacks last turn, but it looks like we're not. Let's do the start of turn rolls. I'm getting kind of used to the pace. That's not going to be anything. But when I say I'm getting used to the pace, I mean I'm remembering there are random events. 13. Rommel trains his panzers. Not available yet. And that's the thing. Most of the random events are going to be in kind of the meatier segments of the campaign. So we don't know who goes first. Commonwealth gets to choose. They're going to leave it on the Italians. I'm not sure what I would have done if I'd gotten the Italians going first. They might have chosen opposite. Usually you would think that each player would choose the opposite of what the other one would. But we had one where I think both players would have chosen the Italians going first. I'm not sure why. There's not much advantage to going first. The big advantage is going second and then getting, well, there's an advantage to going first if you're turning the initiative, right? So you can get a double turn off of it sometimes, but, and no reinforcements. On to the painful stuff. Trying to figure out the fueling. Oh, I didn't do the Malta check. Let's do that. I really don't know if I'm doing this right. It may be that you don't even roll at this point, but you should. The question is Malta actually able to interfere with the Italian shipping at this point in the game, or are they built up enough? I don't know. But I couldn't find anything that said you only roll on this table at certain times. A 9's good, so I'm going to get my 2 and 4. And I got nothing over here to move. These are old-timey. The problems that arises in timing in this game is, look, like I said, somebody suggested to me, hey, don't do the leapfrogging. Make sure you don't do the leapfrogging by moving your supplies last. But you can move your supplies early, and then they can get used. And that's the big deal, is that sometimes you need to pump your supplies up to the front in order to utilize them. So you're left with this kind of, which way do I do things? Now, the obvious with these ports and whatnot is do what I'm doing here, put it to the side, that way it doesn't get leapfrogged. But, you know, it is a little bit painful for me. But I'm looking and I'm like, geez, I don't really have a hell of a lot of supply. I'd like to shift some of this up here. Well, I think I kind of have to. Back to what's going on over here before I get to the mess. I keep trying to put this off, right? These guys move down one thing, which doesn't seem like that big a deal. But remember, I jumped 2 with my 5 movement points. It's not straight, and if I had 10 movement points, I would be here. But instead, I've dawdled. It's going to take me significantly longer. So, I mean, you can look at it. 5 movement points would get me here. 10 would get me to here for 2 turns, but I don't have that. And then 15 would get me here. So I'd gain like an extra turn's movement if I had more movement points. It doesn't feel like it actually works, right? You know, something's wrong with this, with the way this track works. 1, 2. And then I got to pay attention to the other thing, because it's like, I think if you've got enough movement points that you can buzz through it, if you have more than 20, I think they're 5 per, which means instead of 20 getting you to here, it would be 5, 10, 15, 20 to here. So like, I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do and why. There would have been easier ways to make this track work, in my opinion. Added some terrain. There's so much fucking terrain in this game. So many different types. So little space that has it, but so many different types of terrain. I mean, just, you know, that's a pretty damn big terrain effects chart for the desert. But I've added a couple of these rocks to try to hold things down. Obviously, if play starts getting into those areas, I can't use it, but I'm hoping they will make the stickiness bind a little longer, because what's happening is it's popping up, not right when my finger leaves, but pretty soon after. It's probably not worth the effort, but what it may be doing is reducing some of the pressure, some of the pooch of the maps. Now, obviously, I'd be better off putting a whole big heavy box on there, but this will work. I'm really trying to delay this, right? Like, I keep looking at it. First consideration, I don't want to overrun. Second consideration, I'd like to attack up here, but I put myself in a stupid place. There's an escarpment between these light units. And there's a wadi there as well. So I can't just push my own light units into play and expect them to get through, although maybe they can beat up that poor little French Marine and get me some advantages that way. Do I have supplies there, is the question. Well, I have these. See, here's the thing. I do, because if you recall, 1 is close enough. So if I put somebody here to negate the distance, the zone of control. I'm not even sure there is a zone of control across the escarpment. Wow, I'm going to have to look that up. So I may or may not need to have someone there, but either way, I can afford that. I could actually make an attack from here by getting supply here. You're able to trace supply over impassable terrain, which feels really fucking weird. Only for that one special hex, the 1 is close enough. Again, just going to make sure that I've got that right, because I've misinterpreted some things, but now you're starting to see, wow, now that you're actually going to start playing the game, there's a lot of burden in terms of the kind of things that you have to understand. And this is part of what hit me with Compass, was that I basically had to familiarize myself with so many rules and the specifics of them to actually undergo the beginning of the fighting. Now, again, once those rules become, kind of more second habit or whatever, I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say, but once second nature, there we go. Once they do, you're in a much better position, and you probably don't have to look up 4 or 5 rules before you move a piece. Quick rules lookups give me the answers that I thought I had. First of all, zones of control do extend over impassable terrain. Feels weird. Obviously, it depends on the scale of the game, right? But for operational games, normally the zone of control is an expression of like forces being able to exert, you know, patrols and whatnot in adjacent spaces. In a tactical game, a zone of control might represent some sort of rich fire field, which would make more sense in terms of the impassable terrain. In this case, though, it feels weird, right? Well, it may be kind of a mixture of the two. But yeah, the zones would pass through there, but also, yes, you can trace the supply across that. Okay, so I've spent a hell of a lot of time, and what have I gotten? I've gotten nowhere. Shit. I still haven't moved a piece. But yeah, it might be possible, up here, it might be possible for me to launch an attack against that shitty little French unit up here. I'd be fighting across the wadi. Is that a wadi? I know it looks like one. Or is it one of these coastal wadis that counts as slopes? It's kind of this grayish color, so I think that's actually a wadi. It's these up here that count as slope terrain. And the reason is this one is on a hex side, so it can be treated as a normal hex side feature. Remember, they're not additive. The defender gets to choose the terrain they want. But anyway, it's a wadi. There's no rain, so armor and mech would not be happy attacking across it, but everything else is fine, so I'll just not send armor there. So now here, I've got some interesting situations. I've moved both of these, I'm going to say conf groups, they're raggies, whatever. I don't know what the actual term is. They're either KGs or rags. But I'm going to move both of these up here. I've fueled both at a little bit extra cost in case I get an exploitation or something like that. The chances of that are pretty low. One thing I don't want to do is I do not want to not contract any of those words. Oh, ooh, they are picking up the recycling. I guessed right. I didn't think they got it last week, so, you know, again, I don't have that thing. Normally, the recycling gets picked up before the trash, but they've changed their nature, and there goes my stuff in the truck. You can see my stuff. Okay. So, yeah, I've paid a little bit of extra, which might not be a great idea, because my chances of success are low, and I may not even make these attacks because I'm like depleting my supplies so painfully, because my headquarters that I can reach is here. And that one only takes me back, I don't remember where, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one only takes me back as far as these. Now, I was able to trace some of the supply, I think, from this one, which is able to fling me back as far as Bardia. I got one here. I haven't decided which way this is facing yet for moving this thing. I think this may get me back as far as Bardia. No, it gets me to Bug. And I think it's close. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. I could move it one more hex, but I don't want to fuel it for that. And also, I need to be immobile in order to spend the supply here. So I'm running on a real shoestring as to my supplies here for launching, you know, a bunch of attacks. I think the Italians are going to regret this, But for some reason, I made my decision to launch my attacks with the Italians, which may just speed up the British advance. Before I complete my movement phase, I realized I had a truck here. He didn't have anything loaded. So he spends 4.5 to load in Tobruk. This is trying to do it right, right? I look up in here, and these charts, because they're diagonal, you can't just trace across from anything. Let's say I want to get to Sidi Barani. I mean, that's probably not where I want to put it, but it's not a bad place, and like Buck is not in there. It could change things a little bit. Sidi Barani to Tobruk is going to cost 11 movement points. Well, yeah, but not, because that's counting this as an actual road. So I actually can't even use the numbers past Solemn for what's going to happen. So now I go back here, Solemn to Tobruk is 7. Now Solemn is not quite far enough. So I'm going to spend 12 to get me a little past Solemn. So I spend 4.5 to pick this up. 16.5 now total to get to here. This is good enough that this guy can reach. 16.5, 21 to drop the supplies off. I got no more supplies in Tobruk, but I need to push some stuff up from Bardia. The important thing is get supplies to the front, well, to the headquarters that can project it to the front. And I'm low enough on supplies that I'm really, really worried about this situation, right, for even just this turn. Now, I've got a lot of supplies at Solemn for some reason. I don't know if I've cheated or something. But those are accessible to this headquarters, which is kind of okay. Bardia, on the other hand, is out of range. Now I could be making all these choices here, right? Like I'm saying, let's get the supplies as far forward as possible to support our offensive. But I can also be worried about when my offensive fails, do I really want all those supplies exposed at Solemn? And yeah, that's one of the problems. My feeling is it's far enough back still from the British line, and we're far enough from when Compass historically happened that maybe they won't be able to get that far when my probably very ill-conceived attack fails. So what did we say we were at? I think we were at 21 here, but we've got like 45 movement points. That's a lot. So now 21, 22 gets me back to Solemn. But now I could look in the chart, but I don't really need to. 23 and a third. Yeah, it's going to get ugly real fast, isn't it? 23 and a third and 4.5. Okay. 24, 28.5 I've spent. Now I'm dumping them here. Does that make sense? 28.5, 1, 2, 28.5. I could keep track of my thirds. I'm not going to. 29.5, 30.5, 34, 35 to be in this position here. I've dumped more in place. And you can see, you know, how annoying it is to cope with these. I'm going to step away and finish up his movement. But, you know, shipping little bits of supply is just so obnoxious. You don't really have this in the other OCS games that I've played to the same degree. I feel like I'm doing a lot of shipping stuff just in one direction in little bits, where I'm like moving little bits of supply, you know, slice by slice, as opposed to trying to haul fair-sized impacts all at once, and now I'm watching my mail is here. Everything's happening at weird times now. Like, whatever the times that I'm used to have disappeared. And it looks like I got a pile of mail. Okay, great. Well, I have to go down and get the bucket, so that will be that. But I have to finish this guy. I don't remember what he was at. I think it was like 39 and a half, 35 and a half. I don't remember. Yeah, this is the problem, is that, like, you know, it's an intricate enough calculation, mental mechanics, that it's just fucking obnoxious. I thought the supply networks in Desert Fox are a hellish pain to figure out. But once you get them established, you can ignore them, right? Until the front moves or whatever. Until you have to extend them. But in this game, I feel like I'm, schlepping things just a little bit from Tobruk or Bardia just down to here, and I'm having to run back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's time to start kind of planning for the attack. Shouldn't we have done that already? Shut up. We look here, fuck. Clumsy with tweezers when it comes down to it. This is a slope here, which is my best attack. What it looks like is, hey, I would want to put both of these against that. I can't. There's an escarpment without a road here. But here, it's clear terrain, and I can hit a unit with a reserve marker, which is kind of tasty. Now, if I look here, it's still an escarpment without a road here, but if I can slip in up there, I can get efforts on here. These guys are crossing an escarpment with a road. They're really sucky. I probably don't want to pay the ammo requirements to move them. So I feel like my goal is to hit this reserve force here. And I don't have any artillery up at the front. The artillery that's close doesn't have the kind of ridiculous range it would need to hit any of this. What I do have is airplanes. So I look over for my airplanes. And I can send up to 3 bombers in. Now, the nice thing about bombers is that they won't cost me the same kind of supply that dropping that much ordnance from artillery shells is going to do, or at least in terms of effect. So we look for the barrage table. Now, 3, the best I can do is get 20 points of barrage in there. 17 is good enough. That gets me to the same base column. So 12. I still need to send 3. So I'm going to enact these guys. Now, this guy only has, Jesus, this guy doesn't have much range. This guy only has a 34 range. So he may have trouble getting back to a good base. Now, that's 34 in each direction, though, so no, he wouldn't. He's within range. I can rebase him on the way home a little closer. I haven't wanted to rebase my bombers because that inactivates them. So I definitely want this one to come. I definitely want this short range guy to come. And I might as well bring this one because he's a little weaker. That's got some advantages. On my way in, I'm going to pick up one of my yummy fighters. And everybody is going to hit this hex. Something weird. But I'm within cap range of these fighters. So they get to shoot first. Now, here's where I have to look at the series rules, because I'm not terribly familiar with the ordering here. We don't have like a cheat sheet, as far as I know. I mean, we've got like the combat sequence of play here. I don't think we have a cheat sheet of the air combat sequence of play, which is important because of the mission. And we're going to come to something where I'm going to be looking up a lot of rules at this point. So, we have the air mission sequence. I declared the mission. I moved the aircraft to the mission hex. I resolve air combat now. Flak comes afterwards. Important. Okay. So we're going to be doing an air combat because we're going to intercept with this. A hurricane. Now, interception, I believe I can keep intercepting with my additional fighter. I have a second fighter there. Only a mission that's subject to flak can be intercepted, and then only if it's in a patrol zone. Yes, I can intercept with a single active fighter within the patrol zone. I could have actually gone in with a fighter sweep against these guys first, which might have been wise. Let's do that instead. Let's keep these planes here. I'm going to use them. I'm going to fighter sweep before I declare that mission. Let's take a look at how that works, because I forgot that. Fighter sweep is done during movement, and these a fighter is moved to a hex where active enemy aircraft and engages in air combat. Win or lose, the mission fighter is aborted to an air base within range when the rounds of combat conclude. Okay. And it's actually a single fighter is sent. So let's just send, I don't remember where I was. Was I up here? No, I was in a hex with units. I don't know. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's put them here. Okay, so I'm going to send one in, and now we have a 2 to 3 fighter range. I haven't decided yet about those planes there, because this might, if I can't suppress his air power, I'm in trouble. I may still want to run the mission though. Okay, so air combat. We look for the mission there. Order. And we look here. And the attacker, we'll use red for the attacker, the Italians. Essentially, well, no, it's 2 dice added together. Essentially, there's going to be a -1 because that hurricane is a stronger plane. Okay, the defender aborts. That means he is going to be unused, or not. He's going to be used. I don't remember what the proper term is. And we make a roll here. He didn't lose a plane though, so he's now here, and I can continue and hit this next one. And this one's going to be at even odds. I get a 7, both abort. We roll a die for this one, and there's no loss. So we have countered their fighters with one of our fighters. And our fighter will return, I'm pretty sure I was not actually there. Our fighter will return to here, and I'm going to put him kind of like that so that I remember to recharge him when it's time. That means I can come in without any fear of enemy fighters because I look around the board and I see that there are no enemy fighters around. This is where maybe tiddlywinks for this kind of stuff are useful. So these guys are all coming in. This is the mission that I had wanted to send. I had wanted to send a fighter escort, but there's no reason now because there's no enemy fighters. Okay. I could, I believe, no, this is called fighter sweep. Fighter sweep are done, in these a fighter is moved to a hex where an active enemy aircraft and engages in air combat. Yeah, I actually think I can go and I can pick on his bombers because they're close enough to my fighters. I might as well do that. So before I do this, I might as well engage this as well. So I'm sending this plane in. Hey, send something up against me. All right. I'll send this up. This can only defend. So now I'm again at +1 on the combat table. Is this wise? I don't know because the Brits are going to get their planes back first. You know what? I really don't want to be bombed by him. I'm going to hold off. See, here's the thing. I don't want to be bombed by him. I could bomb him, but he can refit those and use them on his next turn. The only thing that I'd get an advantage on is the step loss, which is not terribly useful to me. Okay, so screw that. I'm keeping my plane. We send our bomber mission in. Okay, we look back here. We realize that we're going to need resolve any flak, 14.4. Now this is where I've got problems. Mission subject to flak. This is a barrage. It's subject to flak. Patrol zone, I'd be able to intercept if my fighters hadn't been inactivated. The mission, the die roll is modified by the flak points affecting the mission per the charts and tables. So this is what's interesting. I am subject to flak because I'm making a bombardment rating. I have to roll. But I don't see any flak points on any of these units. And we'll spread them out so that you can see. So here's what the Brits have. And I got a truck with me, that's why. I looked through them, and there's nothing that I don't expect on any of these. The artillery has the, artillery range marker, but there's nothing that says that screams out that it's a flak point to me. And I'm not sure how these are supposed to be expressed because there are supposed to be bonuses for flak. 14.4E, roll 2 dice. Modified result. Well, the modification is my flak points. Where do we have flak points listed? Mission has 3 or more air units. Yes. Value of map printed flak. Okay. Okay. So units don't have it. Headquarters would. I don't have a headquarters there. I have a leader. There's no airbase there. And there's no map printed flak. Okay. So units don't have flak. Even like anti-air units don't provide you with any additional anti-air capability, which I find really kind of weird. Because there are anti-air units that don't provide you with any support. Like they don't give you armor protection. So it's just, I don't know what it's supposed to mean. Okay, anyway, we don't have one in here, so I'm not going to look that up. If I see an anti-air unit in a stack, I'm going to kind of want to look that up again. Okay, so we're at +1, which means that 10 or more is a flak hit. We get a flak hit. Let's take a look. If a loss is inflicted, one of the mission aircraft takes a loss before conducting. Determine which air unit in the stack takes loss by using the mission loss table. All right, so we'll order them left to right. We got 3 aircraft. We roll a die, and it's aircraft number 2. Takes a loss. It's not aborted though, right? It still makes it in. However, that changes my number to 1517 on the bombardment table. 17 on the bombardment table. I don't have to pay anything because this is an air attack. Density shift. Wow, how many regimental equivalents do I have here? Fuck me. This is a half, 1, 1.5. That's going to give me no density shifts. Additional shifts, the terrain is nothing special. I have a spotter, but I don't know. I think I do need a spotter even for planes. I'm not within 10 hexes of my base, so I don't get the capability to carry extra bombs. I might want to land these guys closer in case I want to do anything. I'm not going to use the option. So what were we at? We're at the 17 to 24 table. Do we have any modifiers? No, there aren't any. And we get a 6. A 6 disorders the enemy stack. This is the result we want. It's not the best possible result we could get, but it means that we've got an advantage in launching an attack. I've used all my air power. You know, I'm going to actually take a talent back and not fuel this guy. I know I'm cheating. I'll take that token back. I'll take that token. I don't know where it would have been, but I'll take it back in Bardia because it could not have come from further back than that. And I don't think it came from there. But, okay. I don't think it could. This guy went. No, I'll give it to Solom. I think that's likely where it came from. Okay. The reason is I'm not going to launch this attack. Am I cheating? Yeah, but this game requires too much pre-planning of things like that. And I just feel like the ability to every now and then withdraw or change a decision retroactively is absolutely imperative for me. Now, I believe this disordered removes the reserve, but I'll look that up later. One of the problems I have right now is that I'm playing Raid in the background and doing other things and whatnot. So what's already a very complex procedure is becoming harder and harder to cope with. I'll probably turn off Raid at this point because I just noticed it's like 4 o'clock my time, or 4:15. I don't know where the time went. I feel like I've wasted a couple of hours. I feel like a couple of hours have disappeared. I don't feel like I've wasted them. I feel like I did exactly what I wanted to do. I ate my breakfast. I had an omelet. I played a little bit of Raid to get rid of the points that I had and a little bit more while I was doing this because of the CVC situation. But you know, and I went outside and I pulled, you know, the garbage cans up twice, you know. I mean, I just don't feel like I've done anything. I buried some of my garbage, and a couple of hours have passed. Kind of a feeling I used to get at work, too. I'd be like, I read my emails, and, you know, I fucked around with you know, a few other things that aren't really any work and everything, and what the fuck, half the day's gone. What happened? You know? Now, it's not that much time, but like, there are definitely times when I don't feel like meetings and stuff like that, you're kind of like, yeah, you know, they eat up time, they break up your day, and you kind of feel like, even though you didn't get shit done, you at least understand where at least some of the time got eaten up. But when you just like read some emails and maybe, you know, go look up something on the web that you need to do and get all your programs started to start your work and everything, normally that takes about an hour. But sometimes it just feels like, you know, the whole day has passed or a big chunk of the day has passed and you got nothing fucking done. And you look back and you're kind of like, I don't know where all the time went. But I also know that I wasn't wasting it. You know, and other days you're like fucking around wasting time left and right. And the day just doesn't fucking end. Definitely an idiot. The Brits should not have had this stack in reserve mode. Because I forgot, reserve mode halves your combat strength. Disordered also halves your combat strength, so I've actually got a shot here. Well, I think that means I'm in the barrage segment here. I go to the supply phase. I'm going to check my trace supply. I think everybody's in trace supply. They had better fucking be. Yeah. These guys are the ones I'm worried about. Over here, ooh, fuck. 1 hex is close enough. I'm in trace supply there. I'm good up along this way on the primary road. I was worried about this because it doesn't look like it. If I put another... See, the problem is there's no way the map is poochy enough. You can't even pull it taut. This particular map, I don't know what's going on with it. Like, it feels like my map connections elsewhere align, but this one, this isn't connected. I can't pull this taut. All I can do is move the pooch. So there's actually something beyond the crack that's in play here, I think, that's like causing that particular connection to be problematic. And it's the same as this here. I should try ironing my maps, I guess. Okay, so I've done my barrage segment. I do my supply segment. Briefly, I can say I'm pretty sure I'm in trace supply everywhere. Oh, what about all these fucking planes? I got to return them home. I'd like to get them a little closer, but airstrips are not the best place to have all my planes. Where's the city up, Ronnie? Okay, we'll put a couple of planes there. There's an airstrip there. And I'll put one here at Buck. Actually, it's easier to get supplied to Tobruk. Do I have an air facility there? I do not. But it kind of doesn't matter. I don't have equipment to repair these planes, so whatever. I'll push that back there. Because, see, the problem with these guys is they're going to be eating the same supply. Yeah, fuck them. They're going to be eating the same supply as my other planes, which is no good. This is the guy who has shitty range. Let's put him here, just to make sure. Okay. Yeah, moving my planes forward is going to tax my supply network more. Don't want to do that. Do not want to do that. I want to have these guys being supplied out of Tobruk. Are they all? He's not, is he? 1, 3. He's not. He's got to be closer. What about here? 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he's in supply range of Tobruk. How about these guys? Well, I don't care about these guys. I can't do shit about them. These guys will be, because they're closer than him, and 1 hex is good enough. So these guys are probably in a stupid location, but it's okay, because they don't need to refit, so I can shift them as time goes on. Now it's the British reaction phase. Now, I'm allowed to move. See, I'm not sure if disorganized replaces the reserve marker. That's the thing. I don't see anything that says it does here. And see, you've got an orientation of combat and movement. Modes is weird because you've got like this, what feels like a singular concept. What formation are you in? Movement, combat. reserve, but reserve can be set up in movement or combat mode as well. So it's like they kind of stack, and disordered affects the other two as well. Strategic, I think, has to be movement mode. Exploitation can be either move or combat. Disorganized can be either movement or combat. So I'm going to need to look this over and try to figure out what the fuck the case is. Because is this like quartered? And also, if I'm still in reserve mode, I can fall back and get out of that combat. I don't think I can. I think there's a preclusion. If you're in reserve mode, you're not allowed to release the units if they're in a zone of control or something like that. So again, I have to study this section. Like I said, got to read the rules every fucking time. When you start playing again, it's like, wow, I feel like I know the game, but there's just so much meat to these rules that until you're really used to them, even though I did Compass not long ago and went through this exercise, I'm finding I have to do it all over again. It's really hard when, you want to be playing the game and getting used to it and whatnot, and it's like, I don't mind one little rule look up here and there. But here I feel like the burden is just so heavy that I just keep having to look shit up. I know eventually I get past this. I get to a point where I've internalized enough of the rules, but the learning curve on the OCS is just painfully big. Is it worth it? Yeah, I've thought so in the past. Maybe I'm getting older. See, movement and combat are not modes. They call them modes, but they're not, because a unit affected by mode can only be in one mode at a given time. Very, very specific. And then later on, they talk about them. They're like, they make them sort of semi-modes, right? You are either in unaffected mode or you are in one of these special cases like reserve exploitation. Movement and combat are orientations. They talk about that as if they are in other places. So yeah, I'm only halved once for this, and I no longer have the reserve capability. Now, again, on top of that, let's take a look at reserve. Fuck. A unit cannot switch into reserve mode when in an enemy ZOC. Units already in reserve mode can enter or exit ZOC normally. So I would, if I hadn't been bombed successfully, I would be able to withdraw, but the bombing kept me from withdrawing. Okay, so what is my answer? Well, my answer is there's only one unit that can attack this effectively, and that's this stack. Do I have another reserve stack? I must. I've got an extra marker here. Everybody under here is in reserve, but some of these don't have the capability to move beyond Mursa Matrua, if I recall correctly. So I don't know why I've got them in reserve. They're not going to be able to do much for me. I could shift them up a little, but I'm going to have the next move anyhow, so I probably don't want to waste fuel on that. Got a crappy little artillery unit that doesn't seem to have movement restrictions aligned on it. That could actually move forward, maybe get into range, but it's got like 3 barrage points. 3 barrage points would cost me 2 tokens to do, and probably can't do much. I'm in my movement segment of the reaction phase. Now, unfortunately, I didn't put a reserve marker on these guys, which I believe means that my artillery can't fire. Let's take a look. fuck? Released artillery can barrage in the barrage segment. I think there may be an optional rule that allows you to use artillery that's not in reserve mode. I don't fucking remember. And am I playing, yeah, reactive artillery. Allow artillery that is in combat or move mode to fire in the player's reaction phase, even when not marked in reserve. This rule doesn't allow it to move in reaction or do anything beyond normal rules in exploitation. It kind of makes sense. It's like, sure, you haven't preset it all and everything, but why can't the artillery support the defense? I'm not going to use it here. In part because I'm worried about supplies, in part because I think the Italians are fucked. But what I am going to do is I am going to launch an air situation. I have an 11 bombardment here. That only gets me to there. I have a unit that's an 8 bombardment. I'm going to fly this unit out to here. It's subject to flak. Sending both of them would make me less likely to be subject to flak, but I have only one plane, so I'm not going to be facing density or whatever. There's no headquarters there. However, the Italians are in range to intercept, which means we do another quick air combat. I don't know who the attacker is. I guess they're the fighter. So they're at +1. Because a 2 versus a 1. I get a 9. The defender aborts. I have hurt them. So they're flipped upside down, facing differently to indicate that they're used. But they are also flipped over to indicate that they're damaged, which means I'm going to need equipment to replace them. This plane succeeded in its mission and actually comes back there. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fuck me. I'm not close enough. My plane's not within 10, so it doesn't have a patrol zone. So the hell with that. So we go to here. And we deal with flak, which we find. I thought I was safe with that plane. I could have rebased him if I had an air base closer. I don't think I do. I mean, I may, but probably not within 10. Oh, well. I don't think there's anything there that's going to cause any flak bonuses. So an 11, no flak. We go back to the bombardment, which was an 8. And I think we meet all the requirements. I would get a shift right of 1. That's not optional. So we go up to this table, which means I need a 6 or better. And I just barely miss. So instead of being damaged, this is just used. Now, I think I'm only allowed, I don't know. I'm trying to decide, would I be able to fly this other plane? I think I may be able to. I don't think there's a prohibition against bombing the same space, barraging it essentially, multiple times because you really want a result. So, only 1 barrage per hex, yeah, okay. Oops. All right, well, I've made my attempt to hit that. Now this happened during the movement phase. If I had artillery, I could shift that up and attempt it. I'm not done with the movement phase. Maybe I want to. I'm playing with that reactive artillery option. Because I actually like it. It gives a real advantage to positioning artillery on your defensive line and not having to put a fucking reserve marker on it. Because the artillery's not really in reserve. It's just on call, man, for firing. It seems like it should be able to. And we may change the rules as we go, right? I believe I can get like 12. What the fuck? No, I have 14. I have 14 firepower up at the front, which means I'm going to be on here. It would cost me 3 tokens. I have 14 firepower that's got range from Mersa Matrua. That's not bad. I could get it up to the 17 if I release this thing from reserve, but this only has a range of 2. How far can it move once it's released from reserve? I don't fucking know. Gotta look everything up. And honestly, again and again, it's the complexity and the interlocking in these OCS games. Oh, hi. These guys have been wandering around my yard all day today. I've had a couple of encounters with them. And that's just one of them. Okay. Ooh, run. Tired. These games require sort of a level of commitment the same way that, some of the lifestyle games, maybe not to the same degree, but like SFB and Advanced Squad Leader do. Shouldn't I just call it ASL? I don't know. I'm not a member. I have never been an ASL lifestyle person, right? I've played it, but... and honestly, if you play an OCS once a year, once every 2 years, it probably sticks in your head. For me, though, it's been several years, and there's a lot. So it's painful to get yourself to that point. Okay. So we were looking at reserve mode, releasing. I'm releasing in reaction. I get half my movement points. See, this is the thing. I didn't know how many movement points I get out of it. Half my movement points means that I have like 1.5, so I could get to here. I could spend more supplies to fuel this guy up, but I just don't think it's worth it. However, yeah, so like, would it be worth it for this? Yeah, I don't think so. Kind of like okay with letting the Italians attack me, to be honest, but if we can fuck them up, why not? So I said I have 14 artillery points here. I have a spotter in place, so I can spend 3 tokens. Oh boy, the supplies start burning. See, but here's the thing, I'm trying to disorder him. That's just going to preclude the attack. I'm disordered. I might as well disorder him. Okay, if I can. Now, I have to go and I have to look at how many units are here in terms of regimental equivalents. That's going to be a bigger number. So let's count this. It's 3, 3.5, 5.5, 6, 7.5, 8, 9 regimental equivalent in there. At least by my counting. That's going to be right 4 columns. So what did I say I was at? I was at 14. I'm in a position where there's a fair chance that I'm going to actually do damage to him in addition to disordering him. Oh, but I do not. But I do manage to disorder him anyway because there was just 4, right? Yeah, big stacks don't work, man. Don't do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. So we've now got a disorder on both units. There's no way the Italians are going to attack, even if they're allowed to. I'm not going to look up to see if they are, because it's just a bad idea. And that happened during my reactive barrage segment. What it means is I don't end up costing the Italians as much as I might have if I let them attack. But with me disordered, I didn't think it was a great idea to hit them. There's no exploitation that takes place now. The Italians would have a chance to roll, or could roll for some of these to see if they get an exploitation. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do an overrun because my troops suck. And so I get to cleanup phase, and that disorder comes away. Does anything else happen? I don't fucking know anymore. And now I'm at the second player turn, essentially. And I've got to clean up these stacks. So we almost had a combat. The Italians moved forward and tried. I have the feeling that in general, in this campaign, the Italians will move, take what they can. They're not going to go for Mursa Matrua. They're going to say fuck it, even though they have huge numbers and whatnot, and just wait for Compass to come roll them up. But I wanted to fuck around a little bit. And yeah, seems like I paid the price. But at least you guys pay it too by watching this, those of you who are still on. Because the Italians kind of can't win a fight unless they have, a hell of a lot at this point in the game. Unless they have a hell of a lot of regimental equivalents involved in it. And if you do that, you get hit with the artillery. Now, if I wasn't playing with the reactive artillery, we wouldn't have seen this. I think the reactive artillery is the better way to play, I know. Most people, associated with the design of the game have said, yeah, no, make it just an option. But remember, these options are prototype rules as well. Where did reactive artillery come in? No, I can't find it. They give it a C, but this is a rule that has been tried before. It's one that I really, so there's some that are kind of goofy. So proportional loss adds an incredible pain. When a multi-step unit has taken losses, it loses a proportion of its strength instead of just like a certain number of points per hit on it. Just feel like that's too much of a pain in the ass. Yes, it's absolutely more historically accurate. It's also a pain in the ass. Recon, I agree with the D because it just doesn't add much. It just adds complexity. Independence. Pain in the ass, costs more supplies. You're already paying too much in supply in this game. Long range air, if you're going over half your printed range, you get a penalty. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't know if I applied it, but that one seems okay. Rebasing limits. Allow only 1 unit per base level per turn to apply the base transfer missions. Fighters can remain active clause. Yeah, if I fly 2 fighters into an airstrip, it probably doesn't make sense that they're both able to patrol. It's probably not a bad idea if I can remember it. Convention tempo, this is not a good idea unless you're in a situation where you want to make the game ahistorically more dense. Revised rebuilds. This one I don't know what I really like here. Yeah, this is like whatever replacement points you get, you have to use them the turn you lose them. Like you have to use some of them the turn you lose them. Again, pain in the ass, probably not worth it. They give it a B. I'm not thrilled with it. Attacking empties. This is one of the most. So the game has this little artifact in it, right? Uh-oh. Essentially, you can attack units and gain an extra hex from what you would be allowed to move by not attacking units. And yeah, every now and then, maybe it feels like you're really gaining something off of it. But it just feels like such a picayune little, let's fix this little inconsistency. And they give this sucker a B. Proportional loss is the only one they give an A to. The reactive artillery they don't like. I don't know why. To me, it seems so clear. I don't know if Rick's still alive, obviously. It's 2018. See, if the person I thought he was, who's deceased, would have been before 2018, but they may have just left this in here. Yeah, I don't know, for various reasons. Anyway, one of those inside jokes. Supply caches, he would have been dead a few years before this came out, this edition, but might still make people happy to see his name. He's not somebody I knew well. Supply cache is a new type of marker that players can hold off map until they're not spent. I didn't really want to deal with that one at all. Make construction and stuff more painful. Yeah, I'm not really interested in playing around with the new ones. The reactive artillery, though, I really do feel like that's a big deal. So where am I? Of course, you know, as someone who barely plays this game, I'm not in the best position to say. I don't understand all the reasons why they don't, why they didn't incorporate this one, and why it's rated only a C. It feels fairly easy to incorporate, and it may be that it just creates too big a problem. Like, it makes the defense too strong. That the game's become a little unbalanced because of it, but I'm okay. Mainly because artillery is so fucking expensive to use for anything. Being able to stop an attack in its tracks feels like such a minor, you know, such a minor advantage for expending all that ammo for an artillery shot. I'm not going to have that much. Getting supplies to Mersa Matrua is not fast. In order to build up for Compass, and if it's costing me artillery, that may actually slow me down more than, you know, any kind of gain that I'm getting off the Italians positioning themselves way up here. Okay. Aircraft refit phase. So I want to pay my refits. What do I have here? I have a 2 air base. I can recover all of these, but I don't remember the cost, you know? This is, again, the pain in the ass. I know what I can do. I think it's like 2 tokens, but I'm not sure. Do I look it up again in front of you? I mean, I got to look it up again. Do I look it up again in front of you? I don't know. Close. It was only 1 token, which is really cheap. And, you know, it's mentioned in multiple places. That's one thing I like about this rule set. Is Dean does not ascribe to the, let's have each rule only stated once. So I found it in the sequence of play, but I know it's also in the section having to do with air power as to what. So wherever you look, you're not sent to see this. Now, this makes it more of a nightmare to maintain consistency within the rules, but they do a good job. The gamers are pretty damn good at avoiding putting ambiguities and inconsistencies in. Sometimes maybe there's a little bit of ambiguity in some of their games. But the other thing is these series, and OCS more than any other probably, achieve a certain maturity where, you know, it's unlikely that there are many of those left. Now, version 4.0, the major versions sometimes include some fairly major shifts in the rules. Version 4.0, I understand, does have some major shifts from 3.0. And this is a few layers in, which is good, which is very good. Playing a 0.0 version of the rules can sometimes be kind of a nightmare. Sometimes things have not gone through as much rigor as once you're up to 0.3 or whatever. Several games have been released in places where those rules have been updated to where the minor version numbers are increased. There was something else I wanted to talk about. I'm like, I don't know why I'm wasting time. But yeah, it's one of the good things about them. All right, I will go on. Oh yeah, I know what it was. So if I had not been stupid and had a reserve marker on this thing, I'd have a reserve marker up here at Mersa Matrua. Now, some of those units might not be able to move or whatever, but they'd all be able, but a fair number of them would be able to reinforce. And also, I would have the reactive artillery in that case. So maybe you could make the argument that the reactive artillery dissuades you or prevents you from, it prevents the system from kind of encouraging some historical behavior, such as concentrating your artillery in a single sort of major battery area and creating things like fire zones and stuff like that when you place the reaction marker. It's always so weird when there's a car coming down that thing. Especially when there was no power. There was weird shit going on at that house at that point. But like people out there with flashlights or something. I don't know what the fuck was going on. I think they were looking at the power lines. Yeah, so it would indicate that you're actually setting up the defenses that big artillery depot, whatever you want to call it. I call it a battery, but it's more than that, is operating from. And it also precludes you from being in a stance where you're ready to take a counteroffensive. Sort of. It doesn't really, because you could have a nice sized meaty stack in with that artillery in a position where it can be a reactive, either as defensive or as a force that can take advantage of an exploitation or whatever if you're making attacks somewhere in the area as well. So I really don't know. I can try some hand wavy type stuff to try to say, yeah, you know what? The artillery really should be under the reaction marker or the reserve marker, but I'm okay. I don't know whether or not I'm going to be playing with reactive artillery all the time. I've already said that, but the reserve marker may well serve. The reserve marker may be good enough. It certainly feels like it is what I wanted to use here, which is all the more reason to ignore it. Anyway, let me try to get the British turn out of the way. We're going to complete another whole turn today. Yay! And it takes a fucking shitload of time, and I've done almost nothing. Oh boy. I just realized I've been forgetting about something. I have a choo-choo running up here. Now, I can't detrain here. That's not a detrainable hex, but this is with... oh, fuck. So I've been shipping supplies too slowly to the Allies here, because that's got a point of interest. It also may have a headquarters, I don't know. Oh, I've got 2 tokens per turn. I'm not going to retrofit that. I'll let them use their artillery, whatever. But it might actually be an issue because, like I said, I didn't have enough supply for compass. when I had the stuff that was presented to me, but whatever. I haven't done a hell of a lot for the Brits. That's usual. Moved this truck around, which is annoying. Shifted some supplies. This armored unit, I had it in position where it was fueled by Alexandria, so I shifted up. I put it in Merced Matrua in the box because it's not under the reserve marker. It could be on top of that, but when you got big stacks, and some of them are, fueled, some of them are in reserve, etc., it can become kind of confusing, which is why this stack is extending out into the water. That's one nice thing about this particular game, is that there's sort of they're playable regions of the game, but not important, that you can kind of spread shit out in, as long as you remember what you're doing. And it's clear that units can't be out in the water, since so much of the game happens along the coast. It's a very convenient little thing to do, to split stuff out nearby. Now in this case, these guys, so here it's not so important. These guys are actually under a divisional counter that's in the hex, as opposed to otherwise. And I just put the supplies there. That'll get sucked in a moment. But now I come to the interesting question of, what about the Italians? They're still in a position where they could attack during their exploitation phase. Are they fueled? No. Their fuel got cleaned up back here in the cleanup phase. I always forget about that. So they would not have to fuel, though. Not exploitation, reaction phase. But I wouldn't have any bombardment, but I don't need it. The Brits are disorganized. They could have pulled back. Maybe they want to. But yeah, I'm in a position where maybe I need to worry about some of this stuff. A few options on how to deal with this. My planes are ready, the Italian ones are not. Well, they still have a fighter available, but they're not in range. I have my bombers. I could throw my bombers in again, but then they won't be available on my next turn. I could fire my artillery in a barrage. I believe that would force it not to be on reserve anymore, which is, again, another interplay that, like, do you really want the artillery to be able to fire twice? That takes up a lot of resources, though. Or I could spend a couple of tokens and fall back a hex. I kind of think I like the falling back a hex the best out of all the costs. Sure, the cost of refitting my air units is pretty cheap, but I feel like I can give up one hex here, because the defenses here are, if anything, even better. Fuck me. All right, I'll be back. Having battery issues everywhere. This is impassable. Fuck. God damn it. I can't even get it in there. I need two hands to be able to do this. This is impassable escarpment on both sides. So by pulling back, I've got, escarpment protecting me here across the road, escarpment protecting me here across the road. This then becomes the weak spot of the whole formation and actually works pretty well. So yeah, I pull back. I don't know if I spend my 2 tokens. I can spend the one that just came. And and fall back, and then I'll try to get these fuckers back where they belong. But that means that the Italians really do not want to take an action here. I mean, sure, they can move forward and whatnot, but if they do, what happens during the barrage segment? I would not be able to put my planes in if that happened. But I think I would be able to fire my artillery, and then the artillery would come out of reserve. They'd lose their reserve marker if I did that, I think. Because no, wait. It would be in the reaction segment, movement, barrage. I would not, there's no combat phase there. Yeah, there's no opportunity for the reactive player to attack. So there's no way the Italians could launch an attack. So yeah, I'm fine. So I think I'm falling back there at the cost of the fuel, and I think that is essentially the end of the turn, minus the cleanup phase, where I remove that disordered marker. And that's where we'll stop, because it's raid time. I gotta get into playing. I got through an entire turn. I may end up loading this fucker up, and this will be moving forward. Once again, I'm going into a lot of detail right now. We haven't done a combat. We still haven't done a combat, but I feel like I'm showing stuff that I haven't shown before in the system. Maybe not ever. I know in Burma, I was just looking at, getting the narrative of the game across, right? In Reluctant Enemies, I think I scoped in much quicker on a lot of stuff, but I think I probably glossed over things like schlepping the supplies and how much of a pain in the ass it can be, because it's not that big a deal in that game. And the interactions and whatnot are coming out in a way that I just don't feel like they did in that game. So, pardon for those of you who are here just for the storyline, the narrative of the game, which is really what most of the playthrough is about. I swear to you. But right now, I feel like I do need to get into a little bit more detail for, just to give an expression of what a fucking pain in the ass relearning these systems is, even if you've played them before, unless you keep up with it all the time. As well as, hey, some people may want to take a look at some of the stuff. Some people may notice that I'm fucking shit up left and right as well. Speaking of which, why are the Italians still here? Let's get them up to Sidi Barani in case I need to replace units. But yeah, I think that's the end of the turn. I've moved the marker there, and I'll put my dice up here because otherwise I might not remember where I am. And I think I am going to load this up because there's a lot that's been going on. Plus, I may be playing something tonight after my my raid clan situation is completed, which I don't know when that happens. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning, but I got, yeah. It's like Raid is telling me, look, you're going to have to spend like the next 9 hours playing. Great.